The silver Lexus was already mid-flight by the time the screaming kicked off. It sailed over the split-rail fence in a slow, dramatic arc, spinning like a chrome-plated tribute to suburban entitlement before spearing. Nose first into the HOA's ornamental koi pond like a luxury-priced comet, water erupted. Lawn chairs toppled. Wine glasses detonated in cinematic slow motion. And me? I stood beside a slightly smoking, medieval-looking machine in my field, hands in my pockets, just watching. Next time, I shouted across the stunned subdivision. You can just use the driveway like normal people. My legal name is Elliot Crane. But in the HOA meeting notes, I was forever labeled the non-compliant property owner on the perimeter lot. I owned 12 acres of land that had been in my family long before Maple Crest Estates. It existed before anyone thought to plop an infinity pool beside a cornfield and market it as luxury rustic living. My days were simple. Quiet sunrises in the barn, evenings tinkering with tractors, nights drinking a cold beer on the porch while fireflies drifted around like sparks. Then there was Paige Weather, president for life of the Maple Crest Homeowners Association, self-declared defender of suburban aesthetics, and mortal enemy of anything resembling real farm work. Where I saw a functioning farm, Paige saw an eyesore. Where I saw a boundary fence, Paige saw potential communal amenities. And where I saw my south pasture, Paige saw only this: free overflow parking for HOA functions. It began small. One Saturday, I stepped outside to find a perfect parade of SUVs and crossovers lined along my fence, as if some dealership had set up a scenic display. I checked the property line. They were 3, 4, 5 feet onto my land. Tires digging into my soil. I sighed, grabbed a marker, and wrote "No parking private land" on a sheet of plywood, then posted it at the entrance to the field. By the next weekend, the SUVs were back and my sign was gone. I found it later tossed upside down behind a decorative HOA shrub, with "Not valid HOA override" scribbled on the back in aggressive cursive. Then the letter started. Dear Mr. Crane, as your property borders Maple Crest Estates, you fall under our neighborhood harmony guidelines. You are required to permit temporary event parking along your south perimeter as per community necessity. I read it twice, then pinned it to the fridge with a magnet shaped like a chicken wearing sunglasses. Paige escalated. Every morning she paced the fence line with a clipboard, jotting complaints about my unauthorized equipment, disruptive livestock noises, and non-approved barn paint color. She even told new residents my land was future HOA expansion space. And technically, we kind of own the vibe of that field. When I confronted her, Paige looked right through me like I was a retail employee daring to speak. We are a planned community, she announced. Your farm is transitional. It's been here since 1912, I said. Exactly, she replied. Plenty of time. You've had your turn. The breaking point arrived during the Maple Crest Spring Fizz and Jazz Festival, which, despite its title, consisted mostly of cheap Prosecco and a Bluetooth speaker. I returned from town to find my entire field jammed with cars, grass torn up, deep ruts everywhere. One minivan was parked so far into the pasture that one of my goats was chewing on its side mirror. I pulled in, stormed toward the HOA clubhouse, and walked straight into the festival booths, dusty, hat low. Which one of you decided my field was a parking lot? I demanded the music cut. Heads turned. Paige emerged like a theater villain, stemless wine glass in hand. We have an easement, she purred. Implied by community necessity, you do not have an easement. I said, "You've got a lot of nerve." That was when she slipped up, in front of at least a dozen pleasantly drunk spectators. Paige brandished her clipboard like a royal decree. "I've already filed a complaint with the county," she declared. "You're in violation. That land is zoned a residential now. You cannot stop us from using it for essential community purposes. And if you go anywhere near those vehicles, I'll have you arrested." Later that week, an official-looking letter arrived supposedly from the county informing me that my farm structures were illegal, that I fell under HOA jurisdiction, and that non-compliance could result in fines or even land seizure. Only problem? I personally knew the real county zoning officer. I'd helped pull her truck out of a frozen ditch last winter, so I forwarded the letter to her. She called me immediately. "This is fake," she said bluntly. "Logo is wrong, signature is wrong, the letterhead is from—" Wow, 3 administrations ago. "How illegal is this?" I asked. "Falsifying county documents?" "Pretty illegal," she paused. "Don't take any action yet. Let us handle it." Got it. But don't take any action meant something different to me than it did to most people. The county could handle the crimes. I would handle the parking problem for the following week. I was extremely polite. I cheerfully waved at Maple Crest residents as they parked their SUVs half on, half off my land. I reinstalled my private property signs, this time bolted to steel posts set in concrete. I even printed copies of my actual zoning documents and tried handing them to Paige. She refused to touch them, staring at me like I was offering her a subpoena dipped in cow manure. "This is not how we operate here," she sniffed. "Right," I replied. "You operate illegally." Her eyes narrowed. Meanwhile, unbeknownst to her, the county launched a formal investigation. The sheriff's office launched too. Soon, a quiet procession of unmarked vehicles started appearing around the subdivision, photographing HOA minutes, forged letters, and emails sent from president@maplecrestgov.org and in my barn. I began a little project. It started with a rusted irrigation frame, some leftover steel, and a memory of a trebuchet I'd once seen at a medieval fair. I didn't take notes. I didn't watch a single tutorial. I just tinkered by the time the next HOA event, the Sunset Sangria Social, rolled around. My project sat at the edge of the field, angled harmlessly away from the subdivision and covered by a tarp with a sign that read, "Broken sprinkler system, do not touch." The night of the event, the cars returned. They always did. This time, I was ready, wearing a reflective vest and holding a clipboard. I stood at the only flat, dry stretch of land. "Parking," I announced, mimicking the aggressively courteous tone of HOA volunteers. "Right this way. Single file, please." I arranged them into a perfect straight line exactly where I needed one particular Lexus to be. The launch didn't happen with Paige inside. I was irritated, not homicidal. It happened the following morning. The event had gone late, leaving several cars behind, likely belonging to residents who'd lost fights with cheap cherie in the pale dawn light. I approached the shiny silver Lexus unmistakably Paige's, complete with a license plate frame that read "Life is Better" on a board alongside a tiny HOA logo, "Locked Fine.I." Slid the huge fabric sling of my irrigation maintenance device under the chassis, hooking it to concealed chains. The counterweight several barrels filled with rocks waited patiently by sunrise. The contraption was armed. The Lexus nestled gently in the sling, aimed not at my property, but directly at the HOA's ornamental koi pond. I pressed record on my phone. Not for social media, this was evidence. The release made a deep, satisfying thunk across the field. The arm snapped forward, years of irritation transforming into pure, ridiculous kinetic energy. The Lexus rose, hung, floated long enough for me to consider the possibility that some higher power shared my opinions about. Oz. Then splash, it hit the pond nose first, launching koi like startled orange punctuation. Muddy water soaked the pergola, the yoga lawn, and the brand new Maple Crest "Live Above It All" sign, a spray. A pond sludge rained over a crowd of early morning dog walkers, who froze mid-stride, dripping, staring at me. and at the massive catapult crouched in my field like it had just cleared its throat, Paige burst out of her house in a satin robe and hair rollers, shrieking like a boiling kettle. "What did you do?" she screamed. "That's illegal. You can't." I held up my phone, still recording. "I warned you last month you were trespassing," I said. "Your vehicle was on my land. I simply removed it." Horizontally, sirens approached several, not one. Sheriff's deputies arrived. Then the real county zoning officer. Then a very serious man from the state attorney general's office, who cared far less about the flying Lexus than he did about the stack of forged notices and fake easements just seized from Paige's home office. In the following months, Paige was voted out as HOA president in a landslide after her administrative irregularities became documented fraud. She was charged with falsifying government documents, harassment, and trespassing. The result? Fines, probation, and community service. Specifically cleaning animal pens at the county fairgrounds under the amused supervision of the Agricultural Board. Her Lexus, once retrieved from the pond, was declared a total loss. The koi survived, though they now flinched at any passing shadow. The Maple Crest HOA was put under strict oversight. New bylaws clearly stated that neighboring agricultural properties were not subject to HOA control, imaginary or otherwise. I put that line on a coffee mug. The county chose not to dwell too much on the catapult, one deputy told me quietly. "Next time, just call a tow truck, man." I nodded, pretending I didn't already have plans to turn the trebuchet into a hands-on educational exhibit for school. Field trips. Paige, stripped of her title, had to drive past my property daily on her way to her stall scrubbing shifts. Her new compact sedan lacking both a Lexus badge and that smug HOA license plate frame. On her first day of community service, she stood in the county fairgrounds parking lot, manure rake in hand, orange vest stretched over her designer athleisure. Staring at rows of animal pens like she'd been sentenced to a medieval dungeon, the agricultural supervisor, an older woman in overalls, handed her a laminated instruction sheet. "Welcome to farm life." "Miss Wetherb," she said with a barely hidden grin, "you've got 360 hours ahead of you." Paige's face cycled pale, red, pale again, as the reality settled in.